that clap thing. It's very important. Hey everybody, it's Rob Ridley and Jeremy Don from National Fire Radio. We're here with Tucker Daly from the ho-ho-kus Fire Department, past chief, and still pretty active in the fire service.
Past chief sounds like I died.
No.
We do ex-chiefs.
You are a great looking dead chief. Then.
Yeah,
that's
very handsome.
I want to know who did your embalming.
That's right.
Well, it's still going on.
Well, I don't like saying ex-chief because that's like, well, I'm the ex-chief, the one they got rid of, you know.
No, see, we always felt when we went to those shows in Long Island that past captain,
Right.
past
Recognition
chief,
for
it's like,
everything.
yeah, but you're past. That's like you passed on. So we always thought that,
No good.
we like X.
X.
Yeah,
X. Retired.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, not really.
No? X.
No. Yeah, he's still.
We'll stick with it. He's here.
You're an
He's
ex-chief
here.
and you're not retired.
That's right.
I wish I was retired.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
So just a quick reminder to all our viewers and listeners out there, check us out at National Fire Radio on Instagram, Facebook. We're going to get a YouTube channel. So that
YouTube is up. It's just nothing's posted yet because we've been logging our podcasts, and they're going to be released this week. The first one will be going out.
All right, awesome. So, Tucker, tell us about your first fire, and then like your first real fire where you were.
Yeah, it's funny because when I started in 1980, so that's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
And especially in the fire service.
Black and white.
Yeah, we were all riding on the back then. People had gear on the trucks. It wasn't sitting in the firehouse. You didn't have to get dressed before you got on. People jumping on with whatever they had. Once you got to the scene, you put your stuff on and you were going. We only had like 34, 35 runs in a year, but again, it was all real stuff.
Yeah.
Auto accidents. If it was a fire, it could just be a small fire, brush fire, and we did a lot of those too. Brooms in the front of the truck.
Indian tanks?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got an old chrome one over there.
That's right. So,
Bastards.
my first call, we rolled in on, and the flames were just ripping up. And I was a junior at the time, so I was only 17. And these two guys we had very few packs, so they had to get them out of the boxes. They were the
Survivor?
No, these were Scott.
They were.
We've always had Scott. And they were 2 O's, I think, or 2 A's, something like that. And they came in a big black box, and they had a trunk. Yeah. And they taught you to window hop,
Yeah, right. Tuck it in your coat.
Yes,
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah, that's right.
So these two guys pulled those out, and they went in, and we had the line, and they were like, we're going in, but you can't put any water on it until, and especially when you're young. I mean, you are that moth going,
Yeah.
put the water on it. And,
awesome.
but we held it, and I remember at that point we had a 1963 quad. We had a 1957 Aaron's Fox, one of the last two built. And at that point, we would have had a 1970 Mac. They filled the bed of the Aaron's Fox, so all the hose went.
Yep.
And there were no covers back then, so when you loaded the bed, you loaded the bed.
Makes for a long night.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I remember. I remember these flames shooting about 40 feet in the air, ripping up the side of the house. And as soon as they came out, their coats are like almost on fire, of course. Right. And they're kind of patting themselves like this, and they're going, "Okay, you can open up." And
Yeah.
So it was one of those deals.
That's fantastic.
So that was kind of the first fire I remember going to, and that was pretty early because, like I said, when you went to something.
Right.
None of these CO alarms and things like that. So
I got into the fire service just as cell phones were like people were figuring out, I think I can afford this. And so it was like kind of similar, but it wasn't, it started to come onto that, like you're going to run every car accident somebody drives by, you're going to get all these.
Yeah.
Technology started to catch up.
At that point, I was already past being chief, and I was part of OEM, and all the OEM guys had those phones, the Nextel ones.
Nextels. Beep, beep.
Yeah, so we were beeping all over the country. So
Yeah, and then you get the alert, right? The job comes in somewhere.
Yeah.
The next thing somebody puts out that blanket alert to everybody on the Nextel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So ho-ho-kus has got a job. Everybody
That's
get
right.
going. Yeah.
So what was so that was your first fire, 1980, junior member of the department. What was what was your first fire that you were like I don't want to say that this is where like you were like made into a fireman, but like when you were like actually like stretching in for the first time.
I don't know. I'm so old. I can't think that far back. Really, with that, I don't remember because we were kind of allowed to go in as juniors. Just it was like as the fire was kind of dying. I mean, we really worked as juniors. Your main job was to water supply, so you were always riding the back of the truck, which was an adventure in itself because two guys would stay at the hydrant and one guy would stay on and flip off to the side as all these
Couplings are
flying off. And when the driver stopped, you pulled the next length and ran around the side and hooked in for him.
I think it's kind of unique, though. You guys had a junior program in 1980.
We had our junior program started in 1972.
Were you the first department ever? That's incredible because, like, my hometown department, 1995 is when they rolled it out. That's when junior departments started becoming, okay, we're starting to have volunteer issues.
Yeah.
Let's start getting younger kids into the fire service.
Yeah. There were, you're in the same mutual aid as I am.
Yeah.
And we were one of the first mutual aid systems in the country. And, they had thoughts of doing these things. The old gods really,
Yeah.
sat down and had a few and thought it out, and I know that there were at least 3 junior programs working in 72.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. It's an interesting piece of history I didn't know.
Yeah.
So kudos to you guys for having that forethought that, we need to do something, get the youth involved and everything else.
Well, really, especially in the community that says we live in, you have to get them in when they're interested and young. You get them trained early because they have time to take classes. When you have houses that start at 600,000 and up,
Right.
the person moving in with the young family doesn't have the time. They're trying to pay off that mortgage.
Sure.
And, their new Mercedes or whatever the hell they're buying.
Or Rolls Royce. Sidebar on that for everybody watching. We had a conversation prior to recording tonight about the overhaul and the role of a Rolls Royce. So we might get into that in a little bit. But no, that's good. I mean, that's fantastic. So
Tucker, was there? Let me rephrase the question a little bit. Was there a fire in particular that you have that's memorable that you're just like, yeah, that was that was some work, and it brings a smile to the face, and you're just like, yeah, we did a good job that day.
Yeah, I can remember a couple. It was a really cold November day, and it wasn't snowing, but it was cold enough that any of the excess water, because you had to drain some of the pumps because it was that cold, even with it circulating, you had to keep everything moving. So they had a lot of the truck froze to the street. And we're going in, and it's balloon construction, so you're chasing it. And I was the first in with another fella, Jamie Davidson, who was an assistant chief for us and then became a paid chief in another department. But the two of us went in, and we went. It was supposed to be a basement fire, so we went down the basement, and I remember. First thing is there was like 3 feet of water in there, and we had the 3/4 boots at that time, so your boots were almost filling up because nobody ever pulled them up all the time.
right.
So we walked in, and then we saw a little glow, so we hit it. Just after we hit it, the dining room came down in front of us. Now, it didn't fall all the way down. I mean, it was, but you could see it hanging, and. Then we were called back up, and we had few radios at that time. I mean, the first team might have one, and the second team may have another, but you had to get a whole nother vehicle to get 2 more radios.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So, and training was usually good because people knew what to do on the outside. They were putting ladders up without being told, things that now take a radio to do. We're done without even,
Yeah,
you know,
it's your
mention.
job. Right.
So we were called out and we were said, oh, the family is home and there's a baby on the second floor. So we were like, oh shit, you know, this is bad because, you know, we went to the seat of the fire. The house is filled with smoke. So we went upstairs and we were one of the first groups to have a talk box. So, you know, like you have the speakers on your air packs now.
Yeah.
These things were like a transistor radio thing on your belt with a wire that came up and strapped around your neck and went on your voice box.
Almost like what the tankers used.
Yeah. So we could search 2 rooms at once. So I went in and I found the crib and I said, you know, there's nobody here. And I'm talking to my partner and all of a sudden I hear a crash. Well, he dropped their big TV. I was like, you all right? What happened? The ceiling come down?
Yeah.
No. I think I just broke their TV. Okay. So we searched the second floor. We realized nobody was home. Finally, another neighbor came and said, you know, they're not home. They're on a ski trip. Well, good for us. So then we went down. We started doing overhaul, and we were in the kitchen, and he just gave a tug up by the roof, and the entire, you know, your china cabinet just comes. It was hooked to the wall.
Ugh.
The whole thing comes crashing to the ground. Now, this guy also is an instructor at one of our other academies in the state. He was giving this class, and he started talking about this fire. And this guy that was taking the class, Fire 1, raised his hand and said, was that at such and such an address? And he goes, yes, it was. How do you know that? He goes, I was the insurance adjuster.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah, so that
that's
one,
funny.
you know, because of that ceiling falling down, you know, everything's fun, and you know, it's really a team sport, but it's all like training for the big game or for the big save that for most of us never happens.
Right.
You know, but at that point you realize that, you know, it's not just a game. I mean, our lives really are at stake, even though they tell you that every day, and you know, it's trained into you, and you know that. But this is when it becomes real, when things start falling down around you, your friends get trapped, that kind of stuff.
Without a doubt.
Then that's kind of where it changed the game a little bit for me, I guess.
All right.
Wow. Love it.
We and for a lot of the stuff that we're trying to do here, we're trying to talk about culture. For you, like, what does it mean? Like, I mean, for the fire service specifically.
Especially being in a senior man position, right? I mean, you got to be the senior man in the house. You've grown up in that town.
I'm not that old.
Senior, not senior citizen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lord. You give him a walker with some reflector striping
You know,
on it afterwards?
here comes Tucker.
Some
Across the-
stoplight for
yeah,
Tucker.
right.
Come
Yeah.
on.
Nice.
Poor guy.
Big, you know, one of those rotators on the top of your head. Yeah,
I do
there
like
it is.
those, though.
Yeah. Well, I used to have one because Texaco used to sell those to the kids. Do you remember those at all?
No, see, now you're showing your senior
I
citizen.
I know what you're talking about. 'Cause I had one for
Texaco had
Halloween costume.
had a
fire
helmet, and it was hard plastic, but it fit on the kid's head. And it actually had a microphone with a speaker out the front.
That's fantastic.
And,
I need one of those.
And it had a rotator on the top of it. And you just put in batteries and you could talk to people like
Could
this.
you imagine if I had one of those?
No.
That would be
would have
I
been
can
bad.
imagine Terry asking me how to bury your body.
Right.
That's
He came
without
in the bedroom. No.
that. Right, exactly.
We just wanted to figure out how to turn your radio off so we wouldn't have to hear you.
He's still trying to turn me off.
But he'd still yell over him. So
That's right. That's funny. I had no idea. That's cool.
yeah, the fire service, and it's the biggest fraternity in the world, and you know, you realize that with your good buddies that you went to school with or that you train with, or you had that big fire, or somebody passed away, and you kind of know that person after a while. I mean, it's again like being on a team. I played semi-professional hockey, and you knew the people. You slept with them. You ate with them. You knew you could just throw the puck and they were going to get it because you knew what they were doing. Same thing in the fire service, and that's why we didn't need radios in the old days. But you know, it's really all about the brotherhood and a family. And you go to a foreign country, and if you meet up with a firefighter, they're more than willing to talk to you.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a cop on cop, it doesn't go the same way.
True.
If you're a fireman anywhere in the world, and they get past that, you know, hey, what are you coming up to
Yeah.
me thing for? You know, after that, then you're a brother, and that's what it's all about.
You know, it's funny because you say that, and I worry sometimes. I travel the country, and sometimes like I'm afraid because you walk into a firehouse, and one, you don't want to, like, guys are taking a nap or they just got done doing something, or they could just be having a really crappy day, and the last thing they want is some guy coming and be like, hey, I'm a firefighter from New York, what's up? But I worry sometimes that part of our culture is kind of seeping out a little bit. And we had a guy come in our firehouse the other day, bought some stuff off of Gov Deals. I think his company's Axe and Hoses. He does benches out of old cotton jacket hose.
I know that guy.
And from Ohio, I think.
Yes.
So he stops in, and we're like, you know, he's the first actual firefighter who's buying some of his equipment off of Gov Deal, and he's not a jerk about it. And so we're talking to him, and we're like, yeah, you know, and I'm like, hey, we got him a challenge coin. We got a couple of shirts. His wife was with him. So we had one of the breast cancer shirts, and she was like, oh, this is a pink shirt. I'm great. You know, she was real happy. And he said, wow, you guys didn't have to do this. I said, well, come on, bro. Like, I mean, you know, if I was out at your firehouse, I'd expect the same thing. And, like, not just but like it's hospitality. It's what we do.
Right.
And he kind of looked at me for a second, and he was like, yeah, you're right. And I was like, okay, good. You know, but, like, it's just one of those things where it's like, I hope that still happens because it's...
It does in most places, but, you know, we're now having... It seems as if tradition hasn't stuck, especially with the paid guys, as much.
Right.
So when you have those turnovers in 20 years, it's not like those traditions, you know, like you said, some of these guys are getting annoyed because you're coming into my house. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's kind of like a church. I know, everybody should be welcome, you know. And
it's kind of the same thing in the volunteer service, though, too. You know, I mean, I look at, like, you know, somebody pulls up, bay doors are up, somebody pulls up for directions. And just watching the reaction of the guys, the brothers standing on the apron of who goes up to the car to talk to them, right? And it's always the same one or two guys, right? Or it's when we're out at the fire alarm and the chauffeur is with the engine of the truck and the guys are inside investigating and we know it's food on the stove and they're trying to do an alarm reset and the kids come outside. What do? Do you look at the kids or do you say, hey, guys, come over here. Let me show you the rig. You know, open up the doors. Let the kids climb through the fire engine. You know the brothers are inside resetting the alarm. So your position now is, hey, you know what? I could do a lot of good for this. For the fire service.
That's why you put those little plastic hats on.
Sure.
You should be passing them out. And it's good advertisement for you.
Yeah.
That's right.
And everybody wants one that says ho-ho-kus on it.
I want one of those Texaco hats. That's what I want.
I don't think I have that anymore.
I would normally say your career dissipation light's going to go in, but like your life dissipation.
Yeah, I know.
You should open the door at that.
I know. But you're right. I mean, that culture, though, you know, and instilling that into the next generation, I make a point of it. You know, I'm a ex-chief now. I was a retread as a captain for a bunch of years, and now this is my first year in a long time that I'm not in a lead role. So I'm just a black hat senior guy at the fire. Yeah, that's right. Because I got so much time, right? So, but now that I'm like regarded as a senior guy, I don't have a title anymore. I'm just a senior guy, and 9 out of 10 times now I'm taking the seat and driving the first 2 engine out of our company, and you know, trying to instill that into the younger guys, like when they come out and they see that I'm pushing the kids up into the rig and letting them sit there, pull the air horn, or show them the fire engine, or you know, when we drive past, when we drive past the church and they're doing a car wash. You know what, guys? Everybody have a couple minutes. We're going to pull in. We're going to pull into the church and let the kids wash the rig and make a mess of it. We'll clean it when we get back. Right. But at least we were there, you know? And so getting that message across, I think that's hugely important. And I think that's all about the culture and traditions of the fire service.
Well, a lot of the fire departments around here are fairly old. Right. And they've always been a part of the community.
Right.
Big
Absolutely.
Part of the community.
Yeah.
You know, with spaghetti dinners or whatever, if somebody... You know, they have a house that burns down. You know, a lot of times in the past, like the fire department would do a fundraiser for them.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you know, that stuff really doesn't happen anymore. But, you know, it was all about bringing the community together through that house.
Sure. And as the communities, I think, are growing apart a little bit just because people are more involved in their day-to-day now, where they have their heads down instead of up looking around. In the firehouse, though, we still need to be able to maybe maybe we're not the town center anymore. Maybe the people don't the community doesn't revolve around the firehouse, but we can certainly make it still a warm and inviting place and teach the younger generations coming up behind us that, hey guys, listen, this is how it works. We're the leaders in the business here. Like, people come to us when they need something, and so we need to be warm and open and welcome. We can't be standoffish when a person pulls up on the apron for directions, and you're like, "Hey, you can't park here." Like, they're not parking here.
That's right.
Like, so it's just it's that type of mentality.
Never had anybody pull up in the apron and just be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go do some shopping."
Yeah.
I figure this is a great spot to leave the car.
I'm gonna
Yeah, look good. Nobody was parked here. I figured I'd
Hey,
leave
the
it here.
keys are in it. Valet.
Here's the keys. Yeah, right. Exactly.
I still think the firehouses are part of the community though, because you look at it like, and that's, you said like they're not the center, but like you look at any disaster that happens in this country, and like we as a fire service, like we step up, and because we don't sit around and go, "Oh, look what's happening in New Orleans, that sucks." Like,
Yeah.
they just got hit with a Category
Right.
17 hurricane that's named Katrina, and she is pissed.
That's pretty legit.
And then like, all of a sudden, like, we find out like, oh, there's a department down in the coast of Alabama that doesn't have anything.
Right.
And next thing you know, like, we're out there, like, we put a sign up in front of the firehouse. And one thing I do know about Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana, it was a pain in the butt to spell that out on one of the old signs. Getting all the letters up, but you put that out. Next thing you know, you got cases of water showing up.
Yep.
Sure.
You got
No, you're right.
you got clothing coming in, and even
Yeah.
because it's that identity of the role where we used to have the pancake breakfast or the spaghetti dinner. Now we're still in that motion. It's just that we're in that collection point. Like, people
Right.
know they can
Yeah.
come to us, and
True.
not only that, they trust us to go in their house without a warrant,
Yes.
and they trust us enough to say, "Hey, here's this money. Make sure it gets to the people that you say need help," or
Right.
"Here's this cup. Make sure it gets to somebody who needs it," and we deliver. So.
No, good point. Very good point.
So, Tucker, for you in your career, what are some hurdles that you've come across in the fire service, and how have they like kind of made you better? Maybe even made you worse. I don't know, but no.
Well, it's again, dealing with the people from the past, and when I started in the fire service, we weren't wearing much, and the equipment wasn't that good. So cultures don't change in the fire service at all. It kind of stays the same until somebody either gets hurt and they're forced to change, or people get beaten on the head like I did. And I can remember trying to tell them that we need to do positive pressure, and the chief was, "Yeah, I know we do, but they're still here." And I was like, "Well, I don't want to be here for another hour, so let's do it once, and you order it, and then we can do it."
That's right.
And then they'll see that it works, even though they'll be grumpy. And after that, they were grumpy for about 5 calls, and then it was standard procedure. But it's very slow changing in the fire service, as you know, and that's not a bad thing either.
No, you're right.
Quick change, to go to a new engine that just comes out because it's sparkly and fancy. Well, these things have to last 20, 30 years. So you kind of have to see what you used before. What can we improve upon it? I kind of don't like all these computers on the machines, because those brass valves were awesome.
Yeah.
If you kept them working.
You pull the lever,
And it works.
and it works.
We don't hit a button and go, something's stuck.
Right.
Well, I need water now. Well, I don't know how to fix it. And then it takes a while.
Yeah. Do I'm sorry. Tucker,
Just brought out the bigger hammer, and you get it going.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point, because a lot of times we talk about the younger generation not listening to the older generation, right? But this is what you're saying is completely role opposite, right? Because what I think real quick is that as we put younger guys into more positions of responsibility quicker and quicker these days, I think they're more in tune with an instant gratification, if you will, right? So, hey, I want to institute a change.
Right.
We changed it. And then the senior guys and the older gentlemen or ladies in the firehouse are like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, we can't just change overnight. Like, you know, today we did it this way. Tomorrow we can't just do it this way. So I think there has to be that learning curve too, right?
Right, and also especially in the volunteer service, in the paid service, we could make a decision like that because the next week everybody's changing,
Right.
training on that.
Right.
So I made this at this time, and everyone's going to train on that for the next 2 weeks. It's not fully implemented until everybody knows what they're doing, and then we're good to go.
Right.
But in the volunteer service, well, he may not show up for the next 2 months. And then he gets there and and it doesn't work the same way.
Right.
So you have to make change slow from that perspective.
I get it. I get it. Yeah, absolutely.
But,
that's a good point.
You know, I was the guy always, it was myself and Gordon McIntyre that were leading the charge of.
Who is a guy that I'd love to get in here? I think having the two of you here would be fun.
But we were juniors at the same time in ho-ho-kus, and then he was chief of Mawa when I was chief of ho-ho-kus.
Right.
So, and that's another thing that helped the mutual aid to work so well is because we all grew up together. Right. All the chiefs at that time, it wasn't like you met them because they just were voted in as chief. You knew these guys.
Right.
So we made a lot of serious changes. I think you came in towards the end of when I was being chief.
Yeah, and then
we started the radio committee.
Right, and then we made a lot of
fast team, and the whole thing just kind of. But it's one thing to be the chief and say you're going to do that. It's another thing to bring it back to the house and make it work too.
Absolutely.
So and a lot of that happened in and around my watch.
Cool.
So. Again, I went from the fireball gloves to, these gloves now that have bloodborne pathogen, protection. And it's like.
You're going to stop Ebola. That's the fun part.
That might be next.
What's, real quickly, because we're going to wrap it up here a little bit, but what's proudest moment in the fire service or moments? Like, is there.
Probably when my son graduated from Fire One.
That's cool. Yeah.
Made him third generation.
Very cool.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a proud moment, no doubt. I'm a father. Yeah.
ho-ho-kus? Okay. And how's he doing so far?
Great. Yeah, no, he takes lots of classes. Wanted to go to Indy with us, but we told him he couldn't.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He is 19.
Okay.
So, and he started as a junior when he was 16. And, he wants to be a paid firefighter.
That's cool.
That's
great.
For you as a father, you've ridden out your son before. Have you had the moment where you've watched him head towards a situation and had that, I'm a father looking at my son, or has it been?
No, not yet. Although, we have been in a fire together, which, I said, hey, this is the first fire we've actually fought together.
Yeah.
He's been on a couple while I was at vacation, so we never fought a fire together, but, I kind of gave him a bump and said, yeah, you did all right. And, he's like, well, I've been trained right, so, Dad. Yeah.
That's a classic kid move right there, isn't it?
That's great. That's funny.
And he knows that, I know, or most people know me in our mutual aid, because I've been around for a long time and I'm a coordinator, so I'm on a lot of scenes. So he also knows that these people know me, they'll come back to me if he does something wrong.
You're right. You're right.
And so far all I've had is good things come back,
Yeah.
which is good to hear, but he knows that I'm going to hear it either way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and he gets it.
absolutely. But he gets it.
Awesome.
He does.
It's the biggest part.
Well, Tucker, thanks for coming down and being on the show with us. We appreciate it. So
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother. We really do appreciate you being here with us. It was fantastic. Love to get you back. Maybe we can get Gordon in here.
Yeah,
And,
maybe we could shoot it at the same time because we could go back and forth with a couple of stories.
Absolutely, I'm sure. So, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Remember, SoundCloud for National Fire Radio, as well as YouTube, our National Fire Radio platform. Coming to you live here from the studios. For Rob and myself and Tucker Daly, we appreciate you watching tonight. Have a great night. Stay safe.
safe, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, brother. It's awesome.